This is Launching Your Daughter podcast, and I'm your host, Nicole Burgess, licensed marriage and family therapist. The information shared in this podcast is not a substitute for seeking help from a licensed mental health professional. Now, here is today's episode. Episode 12. Welcome. In today's episode, Ann Halleck talks about trauma-informed yoga. She offers an 8-week closed yoga group that works with women and sometimes teen girls. In today's episode, she talks about what trauma is, the symptoms that can be experienced after a trauma, and how this yoga practice can help decrease those symptoms and let women live and teen girls live in a more confident and safe way. I hope you enjoy this episode as much as I did speaking with Ann. Now here's today's episode. Welcome, everybody. I'm here today with Ann Halleck, and we're actually doing a local interview. She's going to talk a little today on yoga and how she works with women who have been through traumatic events. And what that means is if there's ever been any physical abuse, sexual abuse, or verbal abuse. So welcome, Ann.
Hi, thanks for having me.
So I'd love if you could tell our audience a little more about what you do and why you do what you do.
Sure. Well, I am a licensed mental health counselor and a registered yoga teacher. And I have practice privately and also in a mental health center. And I mostly work with women's health issues, doing counseling. And then I add a little yoga into my therapy.
Excellent. So that way, I'm guessing that with the yoga piece of it, there's also the mindfulness that comes with it as well, that you can build into the private practice piece.
Yes, that's the main appeal to me with the yoga is mindfulness. You can use it for exercise and spiritual purposes, and those are wonderful, but the therapy benefit is with the mindfulness practice. And yoga is not just poses. In fact, there are 8 limbs of yoga, and only one of them is the poses. The rest is breathing and mindfulness, meditation, that sort of thing.
Excellent. I didn't realize there were so many different levels to that. That's great. Yeah. Awesome. Well, can you tell us a little more about the types of, I guess you also do groups. So can you tell us a little more about the groups that you do for the women?
Sure. I do individual counseling, but yes, one of the things I'm most excited about is my trauma group. It is a 90-minute group, and it's mostly group therapy. All women who've experienced any kind of traumatic event. And we do talk therapy, provide some education on trauma, and then also adding some yoga or mindfulness skills, like each week introducing a new mindfulness practice. And some of it is movement yoga, but a lot of it's meditation or breathing techniques. Just trying out new skills that are good for calming the body.
Excellent. So I'm guessing that the women in your private practice, they can process more in depth if things come up during the yoga session, like if memories come up or they get really worried, or again, some of the times the post-traumatic stuff comes up, when they then can come back and process that with you in an individual session. But part of what you teach within the yoga part of it is being able to go back into the body for them to be able to calm themselves down through the skills that you're teaching them.
Definitely. And often I see the women individually and in group, but I also really encourage my clients in group to process that together, because often they're really feeling that at the same time, or really can support each other and understand what's like to close your eyes and feel really panicky, or certain poses in a yoga class might feel too vulnerable or too uncomfortable or anxiety provoking. And so that's why I'm doing it in a group therapy setting instead of them just sending them to a regular yoga class. I want to support them through that process of getting to know their body and learning how to calm themselves, not just out in any studio.
Yeah, so very specialized in it. And what you're talking about too with the group piece of it, that they can process it in a group setting, meaning it also normalizes it, like they're not alone, where sometimes when they come in to do the individual work, it feels like, I'm the only one this has ever happened to, and that nobody will understand. And with the group work, it's like, yeah, there's a lot of us out here that do understand that and can hold each other and support.
Definitely. I'm a big group therapy fan. That's what I've been doing for most of my therapy years. And that's kind of how I got into things, is doing group therapy and starting to realize there was so much from my own yoga practice that was sort of the other piece of the puzzle to what I was doing in group therapy without the yoga. So I just felt really motivated to bring these together. In fact, extremely passionate, and badgered my supervisor to let me combine them for actually a few years until I got the okay. And specifically with trauma, I really felt like they matched together, and there's research on that. Our typical therapy approach is wonderful. We've been doing it for years. I'm obviously a fan of that. I'm a therapist. But I also think sometimes we miss the body part. We practice from the top-down model, which is the brain first, cognitive processing, and then hopefully the body follows along, But then there's also another approach of deal with the body first, and then the brain catches up. But this is my group therapy is trying to do both, handle both at the same time. We don't have to do one or the other. We can work on mentally processing and getting support for what they've been through, but then also learning how to calm the body and stop avoiding those sensations that can be so scary.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's the big thing with just anxiety in general, right, is people avoid it. And when there's been a trauma, it gets doubled in a way that's like, I don't want to think about it. I don't want to feel it. And this is a way that you can gain the awareness that where it is in your body, learn the skills to be able to breathe through that, to calm yourself down. So when it does get triggered and you're out and about, you know how to calm that down. That's wonderful.
Yeah, it's been pretty exciting. I love it, and I think that we've had really good results. I've done a year rolling out this. I think we've had about 5 different sessions of 8 weeks. So different groups of clients doing 8 weeks of once a week group therapy that involves both the therapy part and the yoga part. And we've seen a lot of good progress, I guess. People are excited about it, and I've been maybe overly excited sometimes in my groups about it. It's so exciting to also read some things that totally back up what I was feeling in my own work as a therapist combined with my own practice as a yogi. It's just kind of an exciting field to get into. It's something that I actually was hoping to find people that did this around here because I wanted someone to sort of model what I was doing after. But I guess I'm it. There are people in California doing this. There are people around the country, but not that many, and I don't know any here. There are definitely some good yoga teachers and yoga therapists, which are sort of specialized yoga teachers that have gotten interested in the idea of trauma-informed yoga, and I've been trying to be a part of that movement as well and training some yoga teachers. But I don't really know a lot of therapists that are utilizing yoga in such a way.
Yeah, well put. And I like to, because you are passionate about it, it also can inspire hope for those who have been through something very traumatic. And as you're saying, a normal or a regular yoga class, it can be beneficial, but it's not specialized in helping folks work through the past trauma issues and give them the true support that they need to understand and work through what has happened to them. So that's awesome that you provide that here in Indianapolis.
Yeah, thanks.
So I know you and I have kind of talked before this session about all the different benefits of what you do. And could you tell our audience a little more about what some of the benefits are of this?
Yes. When I started noticing the crossover benefits, like I said before, some of the things that really stood out to me is a need for my clients in therapy to start having some more awareness of their emotional self and physical self, which often kind of goes hand in hand with that, and a major tendency to avoid feelings, and also having some physical issues like weight issues, autoimmune issues, chronic pain, and further wanting to avoid their body and sensations. In the yoga practice, you are really kind of forced to start trying to feel things. And we ease in. We try not to make it scary, but starting to practice tolerating a little bit of distress. And that just means feeling some stress in your body and breathing through it, or telling yourself you can handle it, building up that confidence. It's like all those coping skills that we teach people and talk about, it's like actually practicing them. And often that's totally lost. You can, I know from experience, many times you can cognitively, like intellectually, talk about the things that you want to work on and how you're going to do it, and it all sounds really great, but actually doing it is a different story, especially when it's as uncomfortable and as foreign as feeling feelings in your body, breathing through it, even if it's just for 30 seconds of feeling a feeling, starting to get used to that and believe that you can handle it when feelings come up, and you have tools to do something about it. So there's that distress tolerance piece. With that comes some self-soothing, increased self-awareness, and then also a big thing in therapy is talking about how we talk to ourselves, what's happening in our heads, the self-talk portion, and often pretty negative. The mindfulness practice is really helpful in starting to be more aware of the way you're talking, noticing your thoughts, and then finding ways to calm that or distract yourself. Mindfulness is really about being in the moment in your experience, whatever that is. It might be your experience of breathing, it might be your experience of being with a loved one, but not in your head, not thinking about it, just doing it, being in it. So practicing that in your meditation practice, and often that's really hard and a struggle, and that's why it's worth practicing, because we're not good at just sitting and focusing on music or a candle or how our body feels in this stretch. Our mind wants to go all over the place. Like even if we're focused on the stretch, maybe we're thinking, am I doing this right? I should be doing it more. What are other people doing? There's so much happening in your head. This is just a really great time. Like being on your mat and doing the yoga practice is just a really great time to actually get in the field of all the stuff that we say we're going to work on. Like, hey, let's practice it right here. Without it, I think the stressors are simplified in yoga, so it gives you a better opportunity to see what's happening in your head and just gently keep reminding yourself to bring it back to your point of focus, which can be really frustrating and hard, but very valuable.
Well, and I think you've hit it too, that with anything, when we're trying to learn something new, we do have to do it over and over and over. In our society, we are very much about rush, and doing more. And there are definitely times where we totally lose focus of where we are, what we're doing. And it's like, yoga helps really bring you back, as you're saying, into that moment, and just being aware of, the judgment that may go on in your head of, I'm not doing this pose just right. And it's like, it's okay, because you need to meet yourself where you are and just be present with that. And that can really help heal not only just the anxiety, but as you're talking about the trauma piece of it, where there's a lot of self-compassion that can go into this as they learn to be more and more mindful and present in the moment.
Right. A lot of that mindfulness benefit is for anxiety, depression, relationships, eating issues, chronic pain. I mean, that is beneficial for almost anyone. Getting more specific about trauma, I think it's just a lot more difficult for trauma. We talk about the fight or flight response, but it's really fight or flight or freeze. And freeze is avoidance, and often we can get really stuck in that. An event is really scary, and often we shut down, and then we're sort of stuck, our body's still stuck in this fight or flight, acting as if everything's an emergency, panicking over anything. Even a sensation in the body feels like panic, So people's alarm systems are on all the time, or maybe get overloaded and they shut off every once in a while, but it's sort of on or off. And this is helping you find this middle ground, and it's in really baby steps, a lot more so than maybe someone who has more just general life stresses. So that's the idea of starting to work on calming the nervous system, which is especially important with trauma victims.
Definitely. And I love how you gave the description of when our amygdala in the middle part of the brain gets triggered and it says danger, danger, we go to the back part of our brain where it's the fight, flight, or freeze. And when there's been traumas, there's a lot of times people do get stuck in that. And then it makes moving forward in their life very challenging unless they give themselves permission to go there so they can work through that. And being able to drop down into the body some more really can help, just like, okay, where am I stuck? And I know we've talked about there's definitely some research out there how the body does hold on to those things. And this is one way to help kind of release that so they can get unstuck.
Yeah, definitely.
I'm curious, Anne, could you tell our audience, I know for all the different type of modalities of treatment that's out there, whether it's for trauma, anxiety, depression, just parenting in general, sometimes there are concerns that come up from parents and or teens about this type of treatment. And so what are some of the, I guess, questions or concerns you may get, and then how do you work with those concerns?
I do have some concerns that come up with this, especially with people who are not familiar with the yoga part. I understand the hesitation. I think yoga sometimes is associated with like really fit people, and that can be the case. I mean, yoga can be a pretty intense exercise in some forms of it. Other forms are a lot more for every body, you know. And that's what I try to cater to, is more things that could be done for anyone. It's not about being in shape. It's not about being flexible. It's very beginner yoga, what I'm doing. In fact, it can be more avoidance to get into something that's really rigorous. Not that rigorous activity is bad, but it's not necessarily the mindfulness piece that I'm looking for with this treatment. And then the other misconception maybe about the therapy would be thinking that yoga involves some form of spirituality or religion. And although actually yoga was founded with Hinduism as its basis, and then actually Buddhism was brought in a lot too, at least in the US. With it, it's taken a lot of forms. Yoga's been around for a long time, and there are people that use it in their religious practices. Commonly, that is not the case. If you go into any yoga studio, it's not considered a religious practice. And I don't bring the religious piece into it at all. It's more about this is a mindfulness skill. And yoga is kind of the common popular term, but it wouldn't really matter whether it's called yoga or not. It's about doing breathing and meditation and doing some gentle stretches so you can kind of meditate on the movement in your body. So it's more about meditation as a coping skill, something that relaxes the body, something that as mindfulness has come into our knowledge as a therapeutic practice, has a lot of research to back it up. So that's kind of my use. And I know that some people can get nervous about that. Like, ooh, I've never done yoga. I don't know what it's going to be like. I get it, but I promise it's easy. We ease in. And then, there's always the typical concerns about going into any kind of therapy, especially group therapy can be intimidating. So maybe a fear of sharing things, if you're, that's a pretty vulnerable situation, being around people, maybe minimizing your problems. A lot of people, especially with trauma, women, especially with trauma, tend to minimize what's happened to them. I've been so surprised to hear people say really upsetting things that have happened to them, and they say, oh, but I know people have had much worse. It's no big deal. Maybe that's true, but doesn't mean you shouldn't spend some time to take care of yourself. And I have such a range of issues that people come in with. Trauma can take the form of a major loss, like you said before, the emotional trauma, being in manipulative or abusive relationships of any kind, neglect, things, these women, my clients, are coming in with maybe just dealing with something that happened 20, 30, 40 years ago, and some of it might be recent. Any kind of trauma is totally relevant. If you are having the symptoms of really high anxiety, nightmares, flashbacks, re-experiencing the trauma in any way, being on edge, being avoidant of things that remind you of the trauma, any of those kind of symptoms, then it counts. It's worth working on, especially if it's causing distress in your life. And then also there's sort of the typical attitude of, I should just be able to handle this. It'll get better. I'll just suck it up and it'll be fine.
Well, and what you're talking about, we all can get stuck in this. And I know for women, right, we can really do a lot of comparison. So when you're saying there's trauma, it's a wide range of what trauma can be, what it may look like, whether it's relationship-wise or it's moving and it wasn't an expected move type of thing and you've lost just a lot of connections, or car accidents, war situations, natural disasters. There's a wide range of that. And when we go to compare, oh, mine isn't as bad as this one, it's like, well, no. It happened to you. And if you're having these symptoms that you're talking about, it's okay to go get help. And yes, as much as group type of work can be nerve-wracking at the beginning, it really can be a place of support and true healing versus just the one-on-one work. Because you again go back to, wow, I'm not the only one who has been through something really difficult, and I'm healing, and it's going to be okay that I know how to deal with this differently, and it doesn't stop me in my life anymore.
Right. And there are symptoms from trauma that sometimes you don't realize are from the trauma. And that's one awesome thing about group, is people coming in and saying, hold on, you're experiencing that? I have that, but I just thought that was me being crazy, Mm-hmm. No, trauma affects the brain in a very real way. And it's really sad to see people just think that it's because they're weak, it's because they have other issues, and kind of get in their own head about it and blame themselves, when really this is a neurological trauma as well. It affects a lot of your processing and is also treatable because of that. It's something that's worth coming in and doing some work on. I know therapy maybe isn't as concrete as some other treatments, but I think the research is increasing in a way that makes people more and more excited, more and more led in a direction that the treatment's going to be a lot more helpful.
Yeah, definitely. So I think Anne, you had told me you've got some statistics to kind of talk about, whether it's for women or even teen girls, about how it affects so many people on our planet. And I would love if you can share that with our audience.
Yes, I came into this thinking, okay, I'm talking about trauma. I do see teen girls in my group from 16 up that have had trauma, and I definitely recommend it for even younger girls in a group that maybe is more specific to their age group. But trying to make it relevant to, I know a lot of your listeners are moms and daughters, so I was starting to think on the way over here about why this is important for you guys to hear, for that population to know about trauma and a great treatment for it. One big thing is that the statistics are really high. For women, the reported statistics is 1 in 4 women is sexually assaulted in their lifetime, and that's just the reported statistic. It is very underreported. In my head, I usually think 30%. My guess is it could be even higher than that. And also, I think, I can't remember the exact number, I believe 70% of that 1 in 4 reported is the trauma occurs when they are under 18. Mm-hmm. That's a lot of youth women being assaulted. Mm-hmm. And also, that's a demographic where it's confusing. It's hard to know whether it's wrong. It's hard to know whether people can trust you. It's really easy to be afraid and shameful about it. I have most of my clients actually are women that had things happen to them when they were young and either didn't feel safe enough to share it and get the help they needed then, or maybe felt like they did try to share it, or that someone should have known, but it was ignored or not seen for whatever reason, which is pretty upsetting to them, and I think definitely a problem in our society. It's really scary to think about, and we often just try to avoid it and ignore some signs.
That's part of this, is being able to raise the awareness more and more of what healthy relationships are and what they're not, which is going to be some future podcast episodes. But it's being able to keep talking. If something traumatic has happened to you and you've told your parents, or you've told a school teacher, keep telling until somebody listens, because we're trying to prevent it, and if it can't be prevented, at least there's ways to get help, and this is one way of doing that. It's definitely just keep telling until somebody listens. Absolutely. And as we were talking earlier, we're not trying to give these statistics to scare anybody, but it's really trying to raise awareness. And I know there's so many other therapists that I've worked with who are doing the same thing with trying to raise awareness of the statistics that are out there and how it is underreported. But it's saying, hey, these are signs to be aware of, and that a lot of times the assault actually happens from somebody that is known by the family. And so it's, again, being aware of that and trying to figure out, who your kiddos are having contact with, and that they know they can come to you and speak to you if they need to as a parent, being able to talk to them about that. Well, I'm really glad that we have that here in Indianapolis, at least, that you offer that service for those who have had something traumatic happen to them. They can come in and get some of the healing to get unstuck where they are in their life, and to gain more of that mindfulness, and to be able to calm themselves down and, I guess, regain the control that they're looking for in their life, and not letting that trauma keep them stuck.
Yeah, it's been my pleasure. I think it's just something, for whatever reason, I just latched onto and got really excited about how these two modalities can work together for this population. And the statistics sort of make sense with what I see in my practice. So many people, even if that's not what they're coming in for, have traumatic events in their past and are overwhelmed with the symptoms and need something kind of concrete, a tool to calm themselves, and then be able to start working on maybe some of the more cognitive ways of processing it. It's been great. I've loved my groups, and some of the feedback that I've got is a decrease in severity of symptoms from PTSD, but then one of the major responses I've gotten is increased confidence that maybe not all the symptoms are gone. It's not like, oh, the trauma's not affecting me anymore, I'm totally cured. That would be wonderful, but maybe not that realistic. And also, it's 8 weeks. It's often a starting point. This is not meant to be a cure-all, but I love that people are coming in saying, I feel a lot more confident to handle my symptoms. When I feel that coming up, I don't panic. I don't think that I'm the only one. I don't think that this means something bad about me. And I'm also not thinking that I'm back in the traumatic event again. That is probably one of the most exciting, benefits of this that I've seen.
And I'm curious, do you have any books or other pieces of advice that maybe you actually give to your group members or those in between your sessions, and saying, hey, this might be helpful for you to read regarding any of this information that we were sharing today?
Yes, the book that I love personally is the Bessel van der Kolk, The Body Keeps the Score. This is a really dense text. It's wonderful, and like every page you want to memorize, because the information, it's all about the research about trauma, and it has a whole chapter on yoga, but it's trauma in the body and the brain, and has a lot of great information in there. But it's more of like an academic text for anyone, but be prepared. The one that I think would be good for clinicians or practitioners, clients, is Overcoming Trauma Through Yoga, and I believe that's by David Emerson. That's a good one too, and it actually has quite a bit of pages on what poses are helpful, what different practices, meditations, with pictures and everything. I think it's a good one to kind of work through on your own if you're interested.
Excellent. Those are great resources, and I will have that on the show notes for everybody to go out to be able to look that information up and go from there. And I'm curious, before we end today, could you tell everybody how they can get a hold of you or how they could find you?
Yes, I would love for people to get on social media, get on Facebook and follow me. You can look up Ann Hallett Counseling on Facebook and follow me there. Or my email is annhalleck.counseling, so ANNEHALLECK, counseling, at gmail.com. If you're interested in the groups or have any questions, I am just now wrapping up my 8-week session, and we'll be posting the start dates for the next one really soon. So follow me on Facebook, email me and ask me, and I will definitely get that information out for you. I would love to have a packed group for next time, which is also not that big. But yes, I'd be happy to work with you and kind of spread the word and spread this type of therapy throughout Indianapolis.
Excellent. Well, thank you again for being our guest today on the podcast, and really appreciate it. And we'll get all that information out there for our listeners. We can go from there. Thank you.
Thank you.
If you like this episode, I invite you to subscribe on iTunes to receive the weekly updates. This podcast is also available on Stitcher and Google Play. Thank you for listening. Thank you for listening to Launching Your Daughter with Nicole Burgess, licensed marriage and family therapist. For more information or to stay up to date, go to launchingyourdaughter.com. You can sign up for my email list or join my Facebook group. Thank you.